We're live.
Okay, Senate Education Committee, April 4th, 2025, 1:30. We had, I won't say anything about having the full Senator Ron Hinsdale in at the last minute because we have two members absent. But we are doing, we're just going to do a little bit more committee discussion on H480 and S15 with the thought, if the committee thinks it makes sense, of combining the two and tacking those words, tack S15 onto H480. And so I think, and number one, anybody have anything that they want to start with on either 480 or 14?
Tacking on S15 to 480 seems good reason.
Okay. If I am right, the only thing I think we had many discussion on with regard to 480. By the way, the idea is to use this time to get us positioned to our other members are back to be able to go on potentially on Tuesday if we think they're ready. But the only thing I remember as being something we wanted to have a little bit more discussion about was on the last page of 480 was the notion of the state board shall begin I think we took out the word, I think we were going to take out the word robust, or we had circled the word robust, national search process, then not later than 60 days after public notification of the resignation of the Secretary of Administration, Education. And part of the discussion, were you here for this when we had this discussion?
I was here for the walkthrough in that discussion, but if you had subsequent discussion.
We haven't had subsequent.
Okay.
So we had, I think, one thing that we wondered about is whether 60 days is in fact realistic, given, how rarely they meet. And then concomitant with that thought was what actually starts the commencement of. So, Judith, any thoughts about that?
The law is silent as to what starts the commencement of a search. This amendment is proposing that it would be the resignation of a secretary and then the clock starts ticking. There is nothing that I can find in current state law in either rule or statute that requires the governor to send a letter to the state board to initiate that search. If that is a buried piece of session law somewhere, no one has brought that to my attention. Whether 60 days is appropriate is the question for the State Board of Education.
Sorry, you had suggested that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I believe I sent you their presentation from their last, the search for Secretary Saunders. They made a presentation to Senate Education, I believe last year. And I forwarded that presentation to you all with their timelines and their process for that search.
Okay. So, so you just said, there's in words statute doesn't say what constitutes the start of a search. Would the board getting together and having it on the agenda be the beginning of a search process?
It depends on what they discussed.
No, they had it on the agenda and they discussed how to get the search process underway. Would that be commencing the process, or if we're going to use that term, what does it mean?
I think that is for you all to decide. So I hear you. I hear that is a ambiguous phrasing. Begin a national search process. Does it begin the moment that the agenda is written? Does that begin the moment the posting goes out? Yeah. That would be, I think, for you all to decide. And then I would put that into some language for you.
Okay, so we need to figure out what we want that to mean.
Yes.
Or we need to be that prescriptive.
That was exactly what I was gonna say. I don't think you have to. I think it's a policy choice. Something needs to get going in 60 days.
And we need to figure out what that is.
You don't have to.
Right.
We leave it ambiguous.
You could leave it ambiguous and leave it up to the state board. And that might look different depending on the times of year, what else they have going on. So I think everything is a policy choice here. I think whether you want to add more specificity is a policy choice, and what that specificity is a policy choice, or whether you want to leave it a little more open-ended to allow the board some flexibility and what that looks like. But again, because I think this is all policy, the people who would actually be doing that search would probably be your best guidance. Because I'm not the one doing it and I don't know.
Do you remember who requested this, or was it like?
This came up in House Education last year. It was part of some language they were considering at the very end of the session, but it didn't go anywhere.
It was, and what we can hypothesize that it was because it has taken so long. Somebody wanted to make sure the process got moving. We didn't end up with an active secretary for a long period of time. Hypothesizing, but likely that's the reason. So, okay, so I guess we'll accept your advice and we'll get somebody in from the state board to talk about it. Although it's still going to be for us to decide what begin means and or the length of time, because if it meant job posting, we want to give a lot more time, 60 days.
Right.
If it meant have an agenda item, a warm agenda item where they discuss it for the first time, then 60 days works.
I could see. I'm just going with my knowledge of like the UVM president search process, being a trustee. I could see like forming the committee being meaningful in the 60 days so that who's gonna be carrying out that decision. That's the only thing I can think of that could be accomplished in 60 days that feels meaningful. But that feels really prescriptive.
Yeah.
So the UVM trustees board or group, is there any kind of similar language that necessitates a rapid response?
I don't think so. I mean, I just remember we had a really beautiful process to find Tom Sullivan. And it was not prescribed, but it was a very diverse group of campus stakeholders who came together and wrote the UVM narrative. And that was more important to them than a job description, was like, here's where we are and here's where we want to go. And it was lovely. I mean, it still took 4 to 6 months to write that down, but it was really, really valuable and important for those stakeholders to get on the same page. Obviously this is, state government. It's all this touchy-feely, but that was the last wonderful process I remember. Now
and then we had the word, was it Senator Sheen, I believe, was it you who identified the word robust as something we wanted to talk about?
But it's not particularly important, but I don't know if there's really a definition of what a robust search is compared to a search. So, I mean,
My impression of Senator Sheen's comment was that we all agreed that the word was a little arbitrary, ambiguous, unnecessary.
Was a little get rid of it.
A little bit of get rid of it.
do you have feelings about the word robust?
I don't have feelings.
You do have feelings.
I think I do. It's not not when I'm in the seat. I think that the term just would carry with it its plain meaning, which is like a vigorous search, a strong search. So again, all policy choice here.
It says national.
National's good.
I agree, and then because we don't want to, theoretically we could have somebody looking, the board wasn't a robust search, therefore the process is illegitimate. I mean, who's the, okay, a little bit good with it.
Are we gonna talk about S15?
Yeah.
Wanted to. Problems on Friday.
Oh, no,
Okay.
okay, that's what, but, I think that's our only then, so we'll look to get in, start with Jen Samuelson. And show her what we're talking about. Already that one line on page 10, you know, we should know what we're talking about. You know what we're talking about. This line.
Yeah.
Okay, so start with Jen, if it's, or she, somebody else. Okay. You're on.
Great. So I was looking at page 30 on S15 and the line for the approved independent schools that are eligible to receive public tuition. I think there should be a differentiation between schools that are eligible to receive public tuition versus schools that are receiving public tuition. And I think that the schools that are receiving public tuition should have the benefit of what's provided in this bill, because I think there could be a significant cost difference between. Well, going back, I would say, I'm sure there are many schools that are eligible to receive funds, but may not be receiving them. So I think there could be a significant cost difference between providing this service to schools that are receiving the funds versus making it open to every single school that is eligible to receive the funds.
Well, I think that every eligible school actually is receiving.
Oh, it is, okay.
But.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Yes. I'm trying to think of where to start. The term approved independent schools that are eligible to receive public tuition was a policy choice made on page 2. And actually throughout all of the literacy bill last year. Where the bill was applying to only approved independent schools that are receiving public tuition. But we use the term eligible because it's student choice. So at any given time, a school may be eligible to receive those public funds, but no one may have picked them that year to go there. So they may not actually be receiving funds that year.
Got it.
So it's all of this. There are approved independent schools that are not eligible to receive public funds. And then there are approved independent schools that are eligible to receive public funds.
Okay.
So this would cover the public funds.
Okay.
Eligible schools.
So that's no problem.
So, I guess we'll obviously wait before we vote, but, my sense is,
On the whole bill.
no,
Oh, okay.
no, my sense is we're ready to go. Again, everybody's here on Tuesday with S15
Oh, yeah.
and tacking it on to page 480. Once we have resolved that one issue with page 480.
Can we tack it on to 480 today? Just make it a, administrative process that now it's all one.
Right.
Why don't we do that? We could do.
Yeah.
And end up with a new draft with that S15 tacked on to 480. Do you see any issue with tacking S15 onto 480?
No, in fact, I think that's your only way to advance
Yeah.
bills at this point. When you say have a new draft, do you mean right in this second or?
No.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
Minutes.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's the way to, that's what I assumed you would want to do with S15 or any of the other bills, like the guard bill you looked at yesterday.
Right. And could we name other things we're interested in?
We were just talking about this. We have the epinephrine bill, right? That has,
Yes.
that one, by the way, the agency wants to come in and testify because they have some things they've got. I don't know if the right term is issues, but some things that they think we need to consider for moving forward on that one.
That's an H bill. We don't necessarily need it.
That's true. We don't
anything.
tack each bill, so thank you. You're right.
We can flag and wag them.
And did we have any other? We didn't have any Senate bills we were just talking about. Yeah. The other one is 130, which is That's the guard.
That's so large. Did we get the cell phone bill from health and,
No, we haven't, but we could get that.
you know,
Uh, and Senator Weeks has suggested that we have general, and what,
harder?
back. As I think we're looking at possibly doing that on Thursday, to be, you're looking for a little bit more specificity about
On the results of the previous, on the pilot. I think that would just help. Convince or not convince.
okay. And that one is that a House bill or Senate bill? That's the Senate bill. So we'll have to hang on to the, if we do decide we want to go that route, we won't go then for, so let's take it off, supposed to vote on Tuesday. And, but we still look at, still be good for us to on Tuesday have a clean draft with a 480 with 15 tacked on. We know we want that. Then before we're done, we may tack on 130.
What about the cell phone?
We can. Do we want to wait long enough? Let me talk to Senator Lyons.
There's no, I mean, I don't know that there's a rush. Like, what would be the rush to get it voted out?
S15, I think, has maybe some. I mean, if we wanted to get it through the whole process this year.
Right, but if, if we leave enough time for a conference committee.
Yeah, that's the point.
I don't, yeah,
That's the point. We need to leave enough time for conference committee. And
that's still it's
we've got
probably
a little
another
bit-
2
we've got a
weeks.
little bit of time.
Yeah,
So let me talk to Senator Lyons and see about we can have back.
that would be great.
And, we can have that with them. Just, I think pretty simple for now. Take out the word robust.
Yep.
Put them together and we'll advance things that far.
Did you want to add, you were discussing adding, in relation to significantly below grade level? Adding as defined by AOE? I don't know that it was clear to me whether you had arrived at a decision there.
What is your sense that if we didn't do it, would it mean the same thing? Or is it clarifying to the world if we do add as defined by AOE?
I think it means the same thing because you've received testimony that that's what it means. Right? So regardless of whether you put those words in there or not, you've received testimony from the field that if they were to look to define what does significantly below proficiency standards means, they would be looking at how AOE defines it. So I think it just, I don't have a legal opinion for you on this. I think if you all write laws all the time that require the executive branch to flesh out the details, and not every single detail is in statute. So not having as defined by AOE here doesn't strike me as legally necessary, but I can understand wanting anyone who looks at this law, including a parent, who may not automatically assume that, that is who's defining the proficiency standards. So I really think it's a policy choice.
But what do people, I'd be inclined to put it in for the credit for parents for clarity. But
I'd be inclined not to, just having been here a long time, then every time we said knowingly or significantly or robust or whatever, we want to say like as defined by who this time, it just, it
then if you
feels,
don't say it,
yeah, then what does that mean? It just, I in my mind, we've had arguments about whether we include those words, but not like whose job it is to define them, because that could still be taken to court and AOE could be like, there's no adjudication process if you have AOE define it, as opposed to just, this is the law. And
I mean, others, yes.
No, I'm just curious, what in that language triggers rulemaking? If rulemaking is necessary for the AOE or anybody
It's
else?
not rule, they don't have to go through rulemaking to the place, right? Policy.
Okay.
No.
Okay. I don't think we want to make them go through.
Right.
rulemaking.
it's kind of like that disagreement we had yesterday, like they
took the letter of the law and did what they thought it said. And we could disagree about it, but it didn't require rulemaking. They just put a RFP out that people disagreed with.
Can I suggest that since there's an AOE liaison in the room, that we can at least get some input?
For the record, Lindsay Hedges, Vermont Agency of Education. I will say to assuage the committee's concerns around the general public being able to understand that, we have put out really significant guidance including how schools should be communicating with parents and caregivers around these guidelines and screening and all of that. So I think it has been made pretty clear, and we'd be happy to come in and talk through the guidance we've provided and some of the other resources available.
I don't think over this one word that's necessary, but,
Well, my question is really, how would the AOE interpret significantly? I mean, is that enough guidance to give you guys, or was it sufficiently lack guidance that makes this palatable
Yeah, I mean,
exercise?
I think I would have to defer to the content experts doing the work to determine how they define significantly, but I know that they've been working with the field and experts to make sure that our guidance is aligning with, assessment protocols and standard best practice. And I think generally speaking, when we're talking about putting words in statute, we want to remain flexible when it's referencing best practice to allow best practice to change.
I would also say we've argued over words and phrases that they come back and ask, like, was this your intent? So the conversation we had on the record is valuable to that, like where we were concerned it would be interpreted this way or that. That's kind of how it works. This is our intent when we discuss on the record.
I don't think it's entirely necessary to put in the piece there. I think it's working out fine.
Which means the one
As interpreted by, or as defined by the Agency of Education, that's, I don't know, it just seems like it could be duplicative and I don't know. Just pretty indifferent to it, really. I don't think it's necessary.
well, strike one for brevity, I guess. And I think I'm taking your concerns. I think we could actually be, if we keep doing this and then it doesn't happen in some instances, then it's probably better just to leave it out and take care of itself. All right. Should we, in the interest of, would it make sense to have that tack S-130 onto this now as well? We can still decide what we do or don't do with it, but then we're just dealing with one piece of legislation, the miscellaneous ed bill, and what we do with cell phones is another matter. But for now, should we tack 130 on as well and then just have it in front of us and go through them?
I
Do you-
support this decision.
Do you mind if I have a sidebar with Beth to do a little bit of cleanup on where the language was kind of not matching our intent?
That's fine.
It was like you can get 2 degrees or 2 training opportunity, like,
It would be helpful.
Yeah.
I've seen that. It would be helpful for everybody.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. Then we'll just walk through it when the time comes. All as one. Okay. And what we should probably look to try to get, do we have that in next week at this point?
Not officially, no.
We were trying to do committee discussion on this on Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day at around 3,
3:45.
that's late for you.
that should be fine.
Okay. Good. Why don't we do that? We'll look at the next iteration. Will you have time to have talk before that?
Yeah, I mean, we could sidebar right now, because I think it was just another.
Sure.
Yeah.
If it's quick, yes.
Okay, great. I think it's quick.
You can just go to, because we're done, so you can just go to
Exactly.
the office. and
Yeah.
Have a quick side.
Yeah.
Chat with that then.
Can I?
Go ahead.
I was just looking through my list of issues that I've sort of taken under my wing.
And I have been working with Beth on language to help Essex County with their pre-K issue.
Oh, I don't know that we had any language.
Okay,
We had a lot of, or I gave you some kind of orientation of the current law.
mm-hmm. Because then Senator Lyons said, sign me on too. It's like the last.
Oh, I don't have any language.
Okay,
I think we need I think we need to talk about what the goals are
okay,
in
okay.
light of everything that Katie and I pointed out that would be prohibiting, I think.
I'll have to read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, then I think it's germane enough to the larger reform conversation to keep it alive. Slow this down.
Keep your issue with kindergarten one in Essex.
That they can't use their pre-K dollars for border area childcares, which they don't have any on their side of the border.
Oh, I see. So, okay, we'll keep with the thought that we want to have this bill out of here in the next couple of weeks.
So maybe
So, okay,
we'll go sidebar on that too.
okay, I think we're, go ahead.
Before we go off live, I do think we need to decide if we're doing the joint hearing to hear from students. We do have room 11,
What's the date? Do you have a date?
Friday, April 25th, I believe, is that's the date of Friday. It's the students' break, so it's the best day, and I think it would be noon to 3.
Yes, 25th.
Okay.
What do people want to do as a committee?
Can you expand a little more on the topic that the students are focusing on, or?
I would say, we have 15 students who serve on school boards. We have lots of students who, I think we're hearing from them. I heard from students in Winooski the other night who have been reading our bills and following the process and would want to speak to the reform effort. I don't personally want to be too prescriptive beyond that. They know they have a time limit and that we need diverse voices from around the state, and some different types of schools, but I'm gonna go to it regardless because I need to hear student voice. It's just really important to me.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out this is what it is they're reacting to, because there's,
Well, when I went to the meeting in Winooski, they said, here's the governor's proposal, here's H 454, here's what we've heard the Senate is thinking. So, they're following it pretty closely.
well, let's wait till others are back and make a decision a little bit.
You're the chair. There's 4 of us. We need to tell students, pretty
Oh, I
soon.
thought they were coming anyway.
Well, I guess we haven't, no invitation has been sent out. We just secured the room yesterday, and I think there's an open question whether it's a joint hearing. And not that means they can't get an invitation out, but it'd probably be better if we just were on the invitation.
What's the anticipated length of the hearing?
Noon to 3.
Oh, geez.
You can't listen to students for 3 hours. And
Oh, I think 3 hours, one topic. Anyway, just seems like pretty significant.
I think I've said this before, maybe it was off the record, but when we heard from students about Act 46, it was the most impact that anyone had on our policy area. I really do guarantee to you that the students will rise to the occasion of making it worth your while to listen to them for 3 hours.
I support the concept 100%. I just think 3 hours is a big chunk of time. That's just my first impression. Given that we eat our lunches at our tables because there's so many issues swirling. I think that we definitely, I'm supportive of hearing students' feedback on the topic. This 3 hours is huge in this building.
Why is it starting at noon?
I don't know if it was the room reservation and or like the best chunk of time for students. I mean, that's otherwise their school day. Like I know that, they're not in school that week, most of them, but I think it was to try and keep it
To the same house.
to the same hours. And I think it's, in my mind, it's better for us, even if half the committee shows up at 1 instead of noon or leaves at 2 instead of stays till 3.
Can we invite students from our districts as well, or is it
Yes.
exclusively house?
No, nobody's even been invited. That's the whole thing is like, I want to give the students the opportunity to, and their, supporters or whatever. We should all be finding diverse voices of
So
students.
you need to go meet with Beth.
I do. I'm needed up in Ways and Means,
Okay, that's fine. I'll figure it.
but I can, if
3
we
weeks out.
go now, I can
Okay.
I can do it.
What you say?
Yeah.
I mean,
3 weeks out, it means.
I mean, but you just said yourself, like, we want to invite students that we're not even on our radar yet. So I just want to get an indication. I don't think we need to send out a formal invitation by Monday, but we need to start telling students how to prepare and where we need more voices from and to make a list and, students do need some time to prepare and know that they're taking a day of their break for this.
and so I guess I'm still thinking, I mean, I would be interested in knowing, what for them makes for a successful school experience, or what are the things that
Yeah.
they'd be looking for. A little less interested in hearing them respond to something that's not going anywhere, for instance.
I think you can set parameters, but I can't imagine not hearing from
That's
students
not my
this
point.
year. Okay.
My point is to just make sure that what we're hearing is actually what the area, the part of what they would have to offer that's the most interesting or the most relevant.
Right. I mean,
Um,
by April 25th, they will be following our work pretty closely. So if we change our minds about what we want to hear, I'm sure they can accommodate that. But I hope by April 25th, we know generally what direction we're going.
What do people want to do?
I mean, I'd like to go to the hearing, and also invite some students from Wyndham County.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the same thing if we do it. How many would we be giving? So it would depend on depending on how many kids we had who could come. Some would be by Zoom, I take it.
I imagine. Yeah. I mean,
By the way, Beth, you can get me what's.
We'll,
yeah. I think the next step would be.
You've at least got enough, I mean, for one thing, a couple of things we want.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I will have a draft for you.
I think if we decide this is important enough, the next step would be for you and Chair Conlon to set your parameters about you need 2 students from every county or
Oh, okay.
like I don't want to steer. I am a
Your
professional
only point is that you
facilitator.
want to hear from.
Yes, and I would try to be helpful to that group
Okay,
to make it meaningful for both sides, but they're waiting for guidance from us about,
okay.
what
So
this looks
being
like.
able to ensure it's relevant because we asked the right questions is something we can do. That's what I would.
Oh,
my-
of course,
Okay.
yeah,
That's,
yeah.
okay,
Generally, the reform proposals, I would imagine, is where we're asking them to comment. And beyond that, or it could be more general, I mean, but they just really want to be heard. They're following what we're doing. I'm talking to one at CVU this afternoon who testified in, the House.
so, okay, well, if it's necessary to do it today, is that what you're saying? As opposed to Tuesday?
No, it helps me to know that we're moving in this direction. And then I imagine you would want to email the chair so that you can, when we invite people, we need to know who we're inviting, what we're saying. So
What we want,
even if it's evolving.
what we want them to. address.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, through this process, at some point hearing from kids is a good idea. So,
Okay.
um,
Can Will tell that to their committee assistant?
If we're gonna go through the process of a public hearing, is there another group or another subsets of involved folks that we should hear from at the same time, not just if we're gonna put 3 hours or an afternoon into this? Should we just make this an opportunity for additional voices, not just students, because do the students and then group X, Y, and Z want some time as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think we'll probably end up, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, I think there should be a hearing explicitly for students. I mean, I get, yeah, we should also hear the teachers, also principals, families. There's many stakeholders, but I mean, the focus of the entire education system, I'm not trying to sound condescending, but I mean, the entire focus is students at the end of the day. And so I think having a dedicated block for the very heart of what we're discussing, I think that's reasonable. I think it's also necessary. And I think there can also be opportunities for, other stakeholders to come in. I mean, that's, what we're doing just about every day in this committee too.
Can Will?
Yeah.
I think, by the way, starting at noon, nobody's gonna be there at noon. I'm not gonna be there at noon. Because, I'm gonna go get us.
I mean, I can say, regardless, we have Senate floor at 11:30, so I can say to the House, we probably have to push it to 1. I mean, but this is why we need to start
Yeah.
talking.
Sure, it's fine. So why don't we, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as a point of clarification, I think to my understanding, at least at this moment, it is not classed as a public hearing.
Right,
So it's a regular.
Exactly.
Very
Joint
long
hearing.
committee.
exactly.
And
Everyone-
From
Student leaders.
Yeah.
one to 4 seems more realistic to me than noon to 3.
I think, really you're Mr. Chairman, I'm just asking that we do this and trying to move it forward, because if we're going to decide on the time, et cetera, it might be next Thursday before we get the invitation out to the students. They want to prepare, they need to come from Bennington and, the Kingdom, and we need to.
And I assume we'll be hearing from from Wyndham and Benton, we're gonna have kids, I suspect, on over Zoom.
I mean, I hope we can also appreciate that we're the education committee, and some students might feel really valued to come in person
Good night.
and visit the State House and talk about their education.
I have to give them the choice. Can encourage them to come in public in person.
Exactly,
But-
exactly.
But still, I think we'll have something. So why don't we be thinking about, okay, I've got it now. I had been reluctant, frankly, because I thought it was all kind of in the can already, and I wasn't really sure what the purpose was exactly. But if we can make sure that we're asking questions that are really going to be relevant to what, and not just have reacting to proposals that are long since dead.
Yeah.
Then that makes sense to me, because we can.
I think it's important we hear from a very diverse group of students about their,
So what are we
outcome of
thinking,
hearing.
looking at from 1 to 4? And then we'll think about questions. Okay, I got it.
okay,
And that day, I think at this point is fine.
great. I would imagine once we have a more baked bill, we would have hearings in the evenings, at least a couple evening public hearings that where anyone could comment.
Yeah, we have a real big bill. Okay. So if you can still somehow get in touch with Ben at the time.
Oh, yeah,
whatever you're doing,
And apparently I have an email in my inbox that I'll look at by Monday to say, can you make sure?
ready, so if it's ready for Tuesday, that would be
Exactly. So
great.
that's the guard stuff and
That'll advance. the
looking
ball.
at this pre-K thing and deciding if it's too
And
complicated.
we're gonna get both the board in here, whatever day we can with Jen. With Thursday, then we have the guard in here and on Thursday, we've got them. And off we go. So we are adjourned.